The photo hit harder than any punch I've taken in my life. It was 6:42 a.m., the streetlights still flickering outside, and I'd just lit a cigarette I didn't need. I rarely smoked anymore. Brooke hated the smell, but something about that morning felt heavier. I stood in the kitchen by the open window, watching fog curl along the rain-soaked sidewalks of Seattle, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Just an image. I tapped it, expecting junk. What I got was a snapshot of Betrayal. Brooke, my wife of 8 years, wearing that cherry-red dress I bought her for our anniversary, lips parted in laughter. Her hand rested on the chest of a man I'd never seen, broad-shouldered, tattooed, wearing retro sunglasses indoors. His other arm wrapped around her waist like he'd always belonged there. A mirror behind them revealed a hint of a DJ booth, strobe lighting, glitter in the air. I swallowed hard, the metallic taste of stale smoke sticking to the roof of my mouth. The world didn't explode. It compressed. The hum of the fridge, the soft tick of the wall clock, the spinning of the record player in the next room, it all folded inward until my heartbeat was the only rhythm I could track. That image burned itself into my brain, branding questions faster than I could contain them. Who took this? How long has it been going on? Where was this? Some club? A party? The worst one, why did she smile like that, for him? I didn't drop the phone. Didn't scream. Didn't pace. I just set it down on the edge of the kitchen counter next to my coffee mug and took a breath so long it ached. Then I walked into the living room, where the record player was still softly spinning Chet Baker Sings. One of Brooke's favorites. I let the needle scratch across the vinyl and lifted the arm. No more sound. Just silence and my pulse thudding in my ears. She was still asleep upstairs, curled up in our shared bed, probably dreaming of him. The man from the photo. The man who now existed in a part of her life I'd never been invited into. My first instinct was to march upstairs and demand an explanation. But something stopped me, maybe pride, maybe something colder. I knew I'd never get the truth in that moment. Not with adrenaline rushing through my blood and grief clawing at my chest. I needed to think, not bleed out through words I'd regret. Instead, I sat on the edge of the couch, lit another cigarette, and stared at the photo again. The timestamp told me everything, 1:18 a.m., 2 Fridays ago. That was the night she claimed her friend Sophie had a meltdown at a bridal-themed bachelorette and needed Brooke to stay over. She even called me before midnight, said they were going to sleep soon, just too much champagne. But this wasn't Sophie's living room. This was some nightclub. That man wasn't crying. Brooke wasn't comforting anyone. She was glowing. That's when the first real wave of pain hit, not because she cheated, but because she lied so easily. It made me question every detail of our life. Every I love you. Every soft look over dinner. Every promise. And yet, I wasn't crushed. I was, still. Hollow, maybe, but sharp. Awake. I opened my laptop. Logged into our shared cell account. Began scrolling through call logs. I didn't even know what I was looking for yet. But I knew I wouldn't just sit there and wait for her to tell me a version of the truth polished enough to soothe guilt. No. I would find it myself. And when I did, I'd know what to do next. I used to believe love was built like a house, plank by plank, promise by promise. You take care of the foundation, weather the storms together, and what you build will hold. But I missed the termites. The little things that crept in unseen. In the beginning, there was nothing but laughter and polish. Brooke and I met at a New Year's party in Belltown. She wore a navy dress that made her eyes impossible to look away from, and I'd spilled wine on my sleeve trying to look cool. She laughed at me, then never stopped. We dated for a year before moving into a small house near Green Lake, old but charming, with creaky floors and a peeling porch swing we swore we'd fix but never did. Our weekends were a montage of DIY projects, brunches, hiking trips, and shared playlists echoing through the kitchen. Brooke danced barefoot while I cooked. We argued about paint colors and made up with midnight wine. There were rituals. She always kissed me on the shoulder when leaving early for work. We had pizza every Thursday and made pancakes on the last Sunday of each month. I never doubted her. Not even when I should have. It started small. A receipt for a rooftop bar in Capitol Hill tucked between grocery store coupons. She said she grabbed a drink with coworkers after a brutal day. Her eyes didn't flinch, and I believed her. Then came late-night texts from names I didn't recognize: Zacho, Ash, Vera from the studio. I asked once. She said they were people from the acting class she signed up for to stay creatively inspired. I nodded, proud of her for trying something new. The first real fracture came on a rainy Saturday. I'd just gotten back from a weekend job, freelance photography gig for a wedding, and Brooke was sitting on the couch, flushed, breathless. She said she'd been doing cardio in the living room. I didn't question it. But her hair was styled, not sweaty. Her eyeliner wasn't smudged. And there were 2 coffee mugs in the sink, not one. I told myself I was being paranoid. The more I pushed the doubt down, the more it leaked through the edges. She started staying late after class. She used to call me on her way home. Those calls stopped. One night, I stayed up reading and heard her come in at nearly 1 a.m. I asked if everything was okay. She kissed my cheek and said they'd had an intimacy workshop. Her tone made it sound academic. Her lipstick was gone. That's when I started watching patterns. Her phone was face down more often. She'd smile at messages she didn't share. I once walked in on her mid-text, and she startled like I'd caught her stealing. "It's just Jess," she said. "She's being ridiculous again." But I never saw a text thread from Jess on her screen after that. I started checking our joint bank account when she was asleep. Lyft charges from unfamiliar addresses. An Airbnb booked for a single night 2 months ago. A floral shop purchase, odd, because I usually bought her the flowers. I even reached out to Sophie, her best friend. Asked how the bachelorette party went that one Friday she slept over. Sophie blinked. "What bachelorette?" My stomach turned. Still, I didn't confront Brooke. I wasn't ready to hear the lies reshaped into half-truths. I needed clarity. Clean lines. So I waited. Observed. I took screenshots of receipts. Forwarded suspicious messages to a hidden folder in my email. Kept notes. Dated everything. Then I got curious. Who was Zacho? A search showed he was a DJ/vintage fashion designer. He ran a series of throwback vinyl parties around Capitol Hill and Pike Place. One click deeper, and I found an Instagram post, Brooke tagged at one of his events. A photo of her laughing at a booth, hair tossed back, his arm resting casually on her chair. The caption: "Vibes immaculate. Vintage hearts welcome." I zoomed in. Same man from the unknown photo text. I sat back in my chair, the weight of truth slowly settling in. The affair wasn't a sudden wildfire. It had grown like mold behind the walls, fed by secrecy, silence, and just enough distraction to keep me from peeling the wallpaper back. But now I was looking. And I wasn't going to look away. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I started a document, timeline of deception. Every Lyft ride. Every questionable charge. Every inconsistency in her stories. She had built another life in the margins of ours. And I was done being blind to it. The night I finished the timeline of deception, I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. For the first time in weeks, my mind wasn't spinning with what-ifs. It was finally focused. At 6:15 a.m., while Brooke was still asleep in our bed, I slid quietly into the hallway, closed the door to my home office, and called Ethan. Ethan was my brother. A year younger, ex-military, now working in risk management. He didn't do drama, but he was brilliant with structure. The moment I said, "I think Brooke's cheating," he paused for a beat and said, "You need to get your legal house in order." That's where it began. He connected me with a family law attorney named Carla Greer. By noon, I was sitting in her downtown office, across from an efficient woman in a navy blazer with sleeves pushed to her elbows and a voice like sandpaper. I laid it all out, quietly, methodically. Every receipt, text, pattern. I had color-coded sections. She didn't blink. "You've done more work than half the private investigators I hire," she said, flipping through the binder. We talked options. She walked me through possible outcomes. No children. Shared assets. One shared mortgage. My car, her car. The savings. The retirement accounts. The biggest variable. The timing. If I moved carelessly, she could paint herself as the abandoned party. I needed documentation, cold, exact, and time-stamped. And if there was any hope of protecting what I'd built, I had to stay invisible until everything was lined up. The first step was setting up a secure folder in the cloud for everything: evidence, account statements, communication logs. Carla also had me begin journaling. Not for therapy. For documentation. Each entry dated and saved. Every change in Brooke's behavior recorded. Every late night. Every excuse. Every friend's birthday that didn't exist. That weekend, while Brooke was away, helping a friend with a gallery setup, I installed a security camera angled at our driveway. Legal, since it faced a public area. It showed who came and went. Nothing more. I also bought a small voice recorder, the kind real estate agents use. Not for Brooke. For meetings, with lawyers, advisors, even mutual friends. I didn't want to misremember a thing. Then I called Nora. Nora was my best friend from college, now a psychologist. We hadn't talked deeply in months, but I trusted her. When I told her what I'd discovered, she didn't react with shock. She simply said, "Okay. Let's work through it." Nora helped me plan the emotional side of my strategy: how to remain composed, how to communicate once things escalated, how to prepare for gaslighting, tears, or indifference. She even offered to role-play conversations. I laughed at first. Then I realized I needed it. We rehearsed calmly delivered truths. We practiced silence, letting the weight of evidence speak louder than accusation. Meanwhile, Ethan helped me review our financial setup. We pulled credit reports. Flagged unusual activity. Moved my direct deposit into a separate account I opened under my name only. I stopped using our joint credit card and started paying with cash for anything she didn't need to see. The nights at home grew quieter. Brooke kept up the charade well, maybe because she thought I was still in the dark. She'd kiss my cheek, scroll through her phone beside me, and smile absently when I asked about her day. I played the part too. Polite. Present. I even cooked her favorite risotto one evening and pretended not to notice the lipstick mark on her wineglass didn't match the shade she wore out. But beneath that calm was calculation. By week 3, Carla had drafted a custody proposal for the house. If we couldn't sell cleanly, I wanted buyout rights. I wanted clarity around the retirement fund I'd contributed to for 12 years. She had also prepared a statement of discovery, a request for full disclosure of Brooke's financial records, including transactions that would likely reveal hotel stays, Uber receipts, and any shared purchases with her lover. And the photograph. The one that started it all, the unknown number's blurry capture of her and Zacco mid-embrace in that pulsing club haze. Carla had it printed and time-stamped. A small note on the back read, "Received via third party. Not solicited." It would do the job if needed. One night, I stood in the kitchen alone, staring at the old corkboard above our coffee station. It was cluttered with notes, a dry cleaning stub, a yoga flyer, a wedding invitation from friends in Portland. My eyes settled on one thing, a Polaroid from 3 years ago, taken in Capitol Hill. Brooke was laughing in the streetlight, her hand in mine, our breath visible in the winter air. We had written on it, "Still us, always." I took the photo down and placed it inside an envelope. Not as nostalgia. As evidence. Because this wasn't about vengeance. It was about truth. About clarity. About reclaiming the life I'd built with discipline and trust. By the 4th week, my strategy was complete. The documents were notarized. The surveillance legal. The financials locked down. The only thing left was confrontation. But it wouldn't be a blow-up. No slammed doors. No accusations hurled like furniture. When the time came, I would hand her the facts like a map she never knew I'd been drawing. And let her stand in the ruins she built. That moment was close now. Very close. And when it came, I'd be ready. It happened on a Tuesday. Brooke came home early from a supposed meeting at the gym's fundraising committee. She looked tired, maybe from juggling 2 lives, maybe from sensing something shifting beneath her feet. I was calm. Too calm, maybe. I'd made chamomile tea. Lit a candle. The wedding photo sat centered on the coffee table, framed in oak, untouched since the day we placed it there. She paused when she saw it, her gaze flicking to mine. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "We need to talk." She lowered herself into the armchair across from me, legs crossed too tightly, jaw clenched beneath her light gloss. I could tell her instincts were kicking in, the rehearsed facial expressions, the mental script. But I didn't give her time to perform. I slid a manila folder onto the table beside the wedding photo. Inside, receipts, copies of texts, call logs, a printed copy of her chat with Z, his real name written in the corner in pen. On top, the photo. The kiss. That club. Her hand around his neck, her other clutching a half-finished cocktail with the exact raspberry pink manicure she'd left the house with that night. She didn't open the folder. She didn't need to. Her lips parted, no words came. Not yet. "Brooke," I said, voice steady. "You're free to make your choices. But I won't be lied to in my own home." Still, silence. Just the sound of the candle's tiny crackle and the traffic hum outside the window. "I know everything," I continued. "When it started. Where you met. Who he is. I know about the hotel in Tacoma, the Lyft trips charged to our joint card, the nights you said you were at yoga. I've spoken to Carla Greer. Legal papers are drafted. Financial assets are being divided. I've changed my accounts. And I've already moved the deed into temporary review. You'll receive the documentation by Friday." Her face drained of color. She started. "No," I raised a hand, not out of anger but out of precision. "I'm not asking for explanations. I'm telling you what comes next." I could see it hit her, that she wasn't in control of the scene. "You went through my stuff?" she asked, voice cracking but quiet. I verified what I already knew. And I preserved it legally. I gestured at the folder. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse you before knowing the truth. I gave you every chance to speak first. Brooke's eyes dropped to the photo. Our wedding, frozen in time, 2 people with matching smiles and no idea what waited beyond the frame. "You're really doing this," she whispered. I leaned forward slightly. "You already did." We sat in that thick, oxygenless moment for what felt like a full season. Finally, she reached for the folder but stopped midway. Her hand hovered above it like she was scared of touching what she'd created. I stood up, took the photo from the table, and placed it gently into a padded envelope. "You can keep it," I said. "For the record." Then I left her there, in the living room we once picked furniture for together, now emptied of trust but filled with quiet consequences. No screaming. No slamming doors. Just the cold clarity of a plan finished, and a man done begging for honesty. 3 weeks later, the legal process began to settle into place like pieces of a long-abandoned puzzle. Our assets were divided with a level of civility I hadn't expected. Brooke retained her car and the contents of her home studio, things she'd once begged me to build out for her. I kept the house, the retirement account I started long before our marriage, and primary custody of our daughter, Emma. Yes, Emma. She was the quiet variable in all this. Only 9, but somehow wiser than both of us. I never told her the full truth. Just that Mommy would be living somewhere else for a while and that it wasn't her fault. She asked one question: "Did she leave because of you?" I'd looked into her wide, searching eyes and said, "No. And not because of you, either." There was power in that, a choice to protect her, to control the legacy this fracture would leave behind. The hardest part wasn't the legal work, though there were days of signing and scanning, of speaking to lawyers about custody schedules and support payments. The hardest part was the quiet afterward. The first night I stood in the kitchen making spaghetti for 1.5 people. The empty wine glass. The ring still sitting in a drawer I hadn't dared open yet. But the days passed. And so did the heaviness. I reconnected with friends I'd ghosted during the peak of my marriage. Kevin, my college roommate, invited me out for a Mariners game. My sister Lydia dropped by every Sunday morning with croissants and no pressure to talk. I joined a local running group just to clear my head and feel my pulse in motion. And slowly, a version of me I hadn't seen in years came back into focus. I dusted off my old camera, the one Brooke had once convinced me to pack away because it takes up space. I began photographing Seattle again, foggy parks, neon-lit diners, strangers with faces full of stories. I uploaded the images to a private blog, initially just a therapeutic archive, but it started to gain traction. I named it Light Leaks. Imperfect, raw, unfiltered captures of life as it is, not as it's staged to be. People started messaging me. Other men. A woman in Vermont. A father of 3 in Texas. They'd read between the photographs and sensed the grief, the rebuilding. They thanked me for giving shape to something they hadn't yet found words for. So I kept posting. Then I started writing. Small captions turned into short essays. Pain turned into purpose. One day, Emma came into my office, curled up beside me, and pointed at a photo of a streetlight glowing through the rain. "It looks like hope," she said. I smiled. "Yeah. I guess it does." I didn't need revenge. I didn't need Brooke to grovel or explain or regret. All I needed was the space to grow forward, through solitude, through community, through creating again. I framed a new photo last week. It now sits where the wedding picture once did. It's of a single candle on a windowsill during a storm, its flame flickering, not faltering. A reminder, even in darkness, light still fights to stay alive. And so do I.